So we are live. I'm gonna just share my screen. Gets better background. So good evening again. It's nice to see so many of you, or at least your names in these little tiles. Um, I I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to introduce tonight's presentation. And I know there are many of you on this call that have been to a sophomore night before. And for those of you that haven't, just a little context. Historically, we've been in the cafeteria, number one, but we've had older students come and share their experience navigating Bronxville High School. And, I thought about how kind of off the mark that would be to have an older student come to speak to sophomores and sophomore parents, given that of all the grade levels, the sophomores have actually had like in a way, the most kind of, I don't know if taken's the right word, but they've missed out on the most, right? Almost 3/4, if not half of their high school experience has been through Zoom. Um, and so instead of having a junior or senior talk about the clubs or the teams or the uh, courses that they've taken through high school, the counseling department thought it would be uh, wise and helpful to highlight some of the upcoming workshops that we're going to be running for the sophomores following February. And so Ms. Zelikoff's going to talk about that in a little bit. We're also going to speak tonight about course selection, summer planning, college, and maybe most importantly, the counselor's role in the students' lives. And before Ms. Hassan Jekai does that, I just want to continue to say the following. In a normal year, sophomore year is very tough. I feel like now it's kind of like that Super Bowl performance on Sunday by the weekend in the fun house and the going around in circles and the lights, and and then it stops and then it starts again. And so, when you layer in this pandemic, it makes for this experience to be that much more murky and that much more difficult. Um, and so I think what I actually want to say, and I hope there's some students out there listening. I can only see, I guess, the first few people that joined the call, which are the counseling department. So it's nice to see all their faces. But we do, on behalf of the counselors, want to congratulate the sophomores on digging in and leaning in, and as Dr. Kelly said before, just kind of grinding through and making the best of this situation. And I hope that what you see coming out of the department in the next few months, as it relates to the sophomore class, that we're here to help, that we're here to provide best practice and kind of keep up to date with everything that's happening in like a kind of high school landscape. And so, I'll just say this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hassan Jekai. For the sophomores that are out there, and really to the parents as well, like, please, if anything we've learned from this year is to like kind of be kind to yourself and not so hard, and just really sort of do your best to suit up and show up. And if that isn't good enough or working out the way that it should be, the counseling department is here to help, and I'm going to let Miss H tell you all the different reasons how we're here to do that. So why don't you take it away?
Sure.
Change
Hi,
this.
everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Miss Deanna Hassan Jekai, or as many of my students call me, Miss H. So today I thought it would just be really important to kind of talk about what our role is in the context of sophomore year and just in general throughout your high school experience. So number one is that it's really, really important to form a relationship with your counselor. I know this year it's tricky with Zoom. Most of my meetings with my students have been over Zoom, but it's a good way to get to know people even a little bit, just seeing your face, saying hi, having a quick conversation about a variety of different things. So please don't hesitate to reach out to your counselor. We'd love to talk to you, and especially me and Ms. Zilikoff being new, it's really important for us to get to know you guys. And that just know that we're here to help, as Mr. Kine said. So basically, I split things up into like three categories. First of all, we help your child with academic support. As many of you know, we've been hosting course selection meetings one on one with your child, and in most cases, the parents as well, which is really nice. So it's just an opportunity for us to discuss your courses for next year and to start thinking about it. So it's really important that you're looking at the course catalog and kind of evaluating the different courses. We also provide general academic support for organizational skills, study skills. I've had many Zooms this year with my students one on one, just talking about strategies to help prepare for class, for homework assignments, projects, tests, etc. And one of the most important skills that we all try to help our students with is self advocacy. So, reaching out to teachers, whether it's an email or when appropriate, staying for 5 minutes after class, going to extra help, things like that. These are all important strategies for students to learn throughout high school. So, it gives you guys the opportunity to be independent and make your own connections going forward. And of course, we're here to help you with that. Another piece is the social emotional, which I know this year with COVID, it's been especially tough for everyone. And, a lot of my students have been struggling, and we're kind of a good resource to come to help form some kind of connection. And connection is crucial even during this crazy time, especially more than ever when we're living in a very disconnected world. It's very important to join some kind of club or activity. Even though the meetings are all on Zoom, it's still an opportunity to connect with other students and create some kind of fun in the school day. Luckily, with the X block now in the schedule twice a week, it's a good opportunity for students to be connected in some kind of way, and we're happy to help with that. We offer one-on-one sessions, and then as needed we'll refer out. And the third category, which Ms. Delikoff will talk about a little bit more shortly, is post-secondary planning, which we help you guys with throughout your high school career. But in 10th grade, we specifically really focus on career exploration and an intro to college exploration, which kind of develops even further in 11th grade and, of course, 12th grade when you apply to college. And we will be introducing you to the Naviance platform, which is a career and college tool that you'll be using throughout your high school career. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Kynes.
Thank you, Miss H. So we are thinking about sophomore year in a few different ways. We've kind of created these like kind of guiding themes, if you will. And the first one here, as you can see, is exploration. So Miss H talked about the clubs and the Xbox schedule, which as an aside, the students tend to really like specifically the X block because they get a little bit more time between classes. But also during that time, clubs are running. And as of, I guess, last Monday with the second semester, even more clubs are running. And as, as important as it is to join a club, and I'm going to say a little bit why, Miss H kind of actually really hit the nail on the head with the connection, right? Students that report the most satisfaction in school are those that feel connected. And, obviously that's extremely difficult given the modality in which much of school is occurring these days. But nonetheless, like this is an area that students If you recall from last year, we encouraged all the ninth graders to walk around the blue gym and get involved and kind of spread their wings and go wide with the clubs that they're interested in joining. And as you move into 10th grade and start to plan for junior year, um, we're sort of asking you to pivot a little bit and start to go a little bit deeper. So narrow down what it is that you're involved in and dig a little bit deeper into those activities. And clubs are one way to do that. And Miss Elikoff and Miss Cohen are going to talk a little bit more about other ways to do that as well. Another, I guess, space and time in which there can be some exploration is this summer. So unlike last summer, from an age standpoint, this summer, sophomore, or as they might say, rising juniors are really able to start taking some online classes or potentially going to a college for courses. Um, this isn't a way in which, you can kind of find a back door or a side door into a specific university. So that's not the kind of goal here. Um, More so the goal is to again dig deeper into what it is you're curious about, what it is that kind of burns that flame inside of you, and try to explore whatever it may be that speaks to each individual student. um, it's by no means a requirement and it's by no means necessary. It's just one of the options that you have available to you now that your students are kind of like of age, if you will. The other thing that I will mention, um, that students have been doing, and this was more of a last summer experience than hopefully it will be this summer, in that more things will hopefully be opening up. But we all know last summer many activities or trips or camps or events were canceled due to COVID. Um, in light of that, a number of students saw that as an opportunity to get creative. So if some of you were on the call with the junior class earlier in the year, the one of the representatives that joined us talked about a student that couldn't go to camp, and the students in her neighborhood couldn't go to camp. So she started a camp in her backyard. And the rep was just like glowing with this idea. And it's maybe like kind of an example on the extreme of somebody that really like put together something extensive and thorough in light of, the pandemic. But it's to say that, and the counselors talk about this a lot with the students, like you don't have to go to, I don't know what country or what state or what program to find meaningful activities to either just show your enthusiasm for the world around you or to explore your curiosity for the world around you. You could truly just look to your backyard to find ways to um, organize your community, do something positive, and a few more kind of boxes down the list is like add something to that college application that I know is kind of on everybody's mind. And so, I know with some of my students that we've been having course planning meetings with, I've been talking about summer plans, and I will say, and I will send this out as well. The counseling department, we made this sort of extensive but not exhaustive sheet of summer opportunities that includes courses at colleges, internship availability for places that are accepting interns, um, different programs that are running over the summer, excuse me. So we'll send that out to everybody, sometime tomorrow as a PDF to sift through. And I will say this, and then I think I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. I think Ms. Zelikoff is next. While Ms. H is absolutely correct in terms of self-advocacy and students feeling like their own agency about their process in high school, I think this is actually one area where parents can sort of help out in just terms of, if somebody wants to get creative this summer, like the logisticals of all that, but also just like going through this PDF for students that maybe don't have anything on their summer plans, and sitting with your child and talking about what it is they'd like to study, in theory where it is they'd like to go if places are open, but really what it is you'd like to study, what you'd like to find out more about. um, Again, Ms. Zelikoff's going to talk a little bit about how to find out, how to go about discovering what it is you'd like to find out more about. But this is something where you can kind of work with your child to help them, look in the right direction. And then from there, it's like, let them do the research online, let them read about the reviews of the program. And then if they're into it, you can kind of help them navigate the application process and things like that. One final word, just as a disclaimer: some of these programs for high school students at college have like the university professors teaching the courses, which is great. And some of these programs have like teaching assistants teaching the programs. Um, Not preferred. So one thing that I would encourage you all to be on the lookout for is like, who's teaching these classes. Is it a NYU professor, or is it an NYU grad student? And the same goes, just kind of copy and paste the name of the university into that statement. So that's something that you, as parents and also as students, if you're out there listening, could use a critical eye for.
Okay. So nice to meet you all. I'm Alyssa Zelikoff. I am the second new counselor in the counseling department this year. It's been awesome getting to speak with a few of you so far this week in course launching meetings, but I'm excited to continue to get to know you all as we move through this year and beyond. So as Mr. Kind just touched upon, sophomore year can really be pivotal for many students. And so in 10th grade, students have the opportunity to build on the skills that they achieved in 9th grade while simultaneously starting to explore passions and interests. So in the hopes of furthering this exploration in a meaningful way, the guidance department is going to conduct 4 classroom presentations this spring. So 2 of these presentations are devoted to Naviance's Do What You Are software, which really allows students to complete interest inventories and engage in self-exploration activities. And so these sessions provide students with the space to think about really how their passions and interests and the current skill set that they have fit into potentially future college majors or maybe even possible future careers. So through guided conversations, students will really start to embark on the first step in the college process, which at sort of the 10th grade level is self-exploration. So we're then also fortunate to have our school psychologist, Dr. Viviano, and the high school psychology interns lead 2 more sessions with the sophomore class, so in total 4. These sessions will briefly touch upon social and emotional development through the lens of school-based DBT. And so last week, if whoever was able to join, Alec Miller, who's amazing, he's the psychologist at the forefront of adapting DBT to be used in schools. He led a parent presentation that sort of touched upon the importance of these skills in helping students increase resilience, so that advocacy piece comes in, withstand challenges and pressures, and communicate effectively. So these 2 classroom meetings with the psychology interns and Dr. Viviano will sort of act as a brief introduction and offer students an education and introduction to these invaluable skills. So Mr. Kind, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide.
Sure.
So this is an example of an activity that we're going to be doing with the sophomores. So we're going to be asking students to interview an adult in their life and ask them how they got to where they are today in their career. So for some, this path is totally linear, right? So it's someone who follows a prescribed plan that, goes from A to B to C. So that's sort of one potential route. For others, and quite honestly, more often than not, paths are windy and curvy and don't necessarily follow the roadmap that you once thought you would follow or maybe even wanted to follow. So our messaging to students and the goals of these thought exercises is that all of the above paths are okay. We want to encourage students to take their foot off of like the metaphorical pedal, and not see things so linearly. So these are really the time to start exploring and asking questions about what feels like the right fit for a variety of different reasons. And so these interviews that the students will conduct, they're really to provide anecdotes to prove the point that you can and you should explore and follow your interests, even if it leads to an alternative route. So then the goal is once students can start identifying a few areas of interest based off of this activity and all the other ones we're going to do, they can start aligning them with how they fit into things like coursework and extracurricular activities and summer programs and all that good stuff. So Ms. Cohen is next going to talk about how sort of course selection plays a role in all of this.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you tonight. So just this week, we all started meeting with our 10th graders to talk about classes for next year. Whereas in 9th and 10th grade, the focus of our course selection was basically filling a lot of the requirements. Start looking toward 11th grade, the course selection can start to be tailored a little bit more towards students looking at their interests. We start to have more electives available. Students have fulfilled a lot of the requirements. There start to be different levels, more levels in different classes available, AP classes, honors classes. And students can start to think a little bit more about what they're selecting and also should be thinking about why. When picking a course load, it's important to think about some things and to look within, to think about, what do I like? What has been interesting to me? What teachers have I taken that I've responded to? What subject areas historically have, lit something within me? And how can I highlight these interests? What story is my transcript going to tell? Without thinking, too much about the final destination of where that transcript is going. Somebody is going to look at that transcript one day and wonder, why were these courses chosen? What was the student interested and passionate about, and why? It's not about choosing courses purely to add rigor for the sake of having a certain count of advanced classes or a number of advanced classes, but it's about pursuing challenging classes in areas that are interesting to you. It's important to think about rigor versus balance also. Everyone has a point in which the rigor is challenging and interesting and you can excel, and a point where the rigor gets to be beyond rigor and can be overwhelming. And when it becomes overwhelming, that work-life balance can be skewed. And I think particularly in the climate that we're in right now, where these students have been exposed to so much and are balancing so much, just remembering what group you are in and where you have to be at any one time, morning or afternoon, I'm impressed that they can even do that. I think it's really important to think about the big picture in selecting these courses. So following your interests, reflecting on that, and following your passions, quality versus quantity. What is your story? Who are you? What do you bring? Thinking about, as Mr. Kine mentioned, some summer programs, that's part of the story too. And then also, our offerings through the OC21 program. We have some online courses through there. Is there anything interesting through there that lights your fire? Do you have a teacher that you have a connection with? Would you want to do an independent study course with them in something that was interesting to you? Here are some examples you see built on the slide. We have students, for example, who took art history with Miss Allen and loved it, and they continued doing an independent study with her to do more advanced art history. Students who did psychology with Miss Landsman and then continued on to go more in depth and did forensic psychology at an advanced level with her. And then students that just found connections or interests, and had teachers they did things with, students who did things, online courses through other institutions. Um, we've had students we had students do dissection on their lunch hour, which always was very impressive to me. We've had students do all different kinds of things. So, talk to your counselor, because even though we are a small school, we encourage students to really pursue what they can. And we will, if you have an interest, we will try to find a way for you to explore that so you can, find a way to channel and learn what you want to learn. I don't know who's going next.
That was me. I didn't
okay.
want to, I didn't know if you had more in there, more
I
in
mean,
the
I
tank.
can keep going.
No, that's a natural segue.
Okay.
Thanks, Ellen. And thanks, Deanna and Alyssa. So, even this slide gave me and gave us some hesitation. I think, talking to 10th graders about college is a difficult tightrope to walk. Some of you out there might already have one or more schools that you want to apply to. Some of you out there might not even be thinking about, college. You're kind of just focused on, vacation next week. And there's everybody in between. So I guess the following comments and any questions that stem from it, is really kind of catered towards the center of that spectrum. I'm not going to get into too much depth about this year's college application statistics or things like that. But for those of you that have been following, students have been applying. Internally, we saw application numbers up at a number of schools. And, if you're reading the New York Times, nationally, those applications were up as well at, more often than not, the kind of highly selective institutions. And as standardized testing is this big sort of unknown black hole, if you will, where some test centers are open, some have been closed, et cetera, et cetera. And so while slowly information starting to trickle in about next year's graduating class, there's probably the most unknown about the class of 2024. And I recognize, and the other counselors recognize, that just that unknown itself is probably something that, doesn't sit well with you, to say the least. Having said that, so much of the process is still the same, right? Your performance in high school over, these past 2 years and subsequently junior year, the grades you get in those classes, the rigor of your classes, meaning honors or AP, the, I guess, quality of your classes, again, maybe going from Regents level to honors, going from honors level to AP, moving from APs during junior year into potentially an equal amount or one or two more during senior year. Those factors, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and hopefully for the class of 2024 post-pandemic, will continue to be the driving force in the college application process. Those are the things you have the most control over. Those are the things that speak most specifically to who you are as a student, like your breadth of work over the past, when it will be senior year, the past 3 years, speaks to who you are as a college student, versus how well you do on any given random Saturday in, Mamaroneck's gym at 7 in the morning, right? Like that is an indicator of something, but it's not an indicator of how successful you'll be at college. Furthermore, to that point, if some of you saw some of the communication out of the department, by the time you go to take the SAT or the ACT, it is possible you'll be doing it from your house. Both organizations are exploring, I guess, virtual or remote options of taking the exam. I guess really more on that to follow by either testing organization, but they are exploring a different way to administer that test. Also in other news, many of you hopefully saw that the College Board's done away with SAT 2 subject tests. So that was timely for the class of 2024. This might have been the first year for those of you maybe in AP World History that you were considering taking a subject test. You don't have to worry about that anymore. So for those of you that have already signed up, I believe a refund should be coming towards you from the College Board. So that's some silver lining in the world of college. But again, this is down the road. There's a lot changing year to year, especially as we go through this, this experience as a community and as a country, being COVID. Everything that was once in person, like these meetings, is now virtual. And so we will be sharing some opportunities for students and parents to attend virtual college fairs. They're happening for the next few months by various organizations, including the College Board and the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, which is NACAC. So there's lots of opportunities to do some virtual touring and some virtual, I guess, fact finding, which you don't have to do. It's by no means necessary at this point in time in your high school career. But again, we do know that some of you are excited to start that work and eager to start that work. And so we want to, I guess, essentially just give you the resources to be able to make that happen. And since it's so easy to do from, the luxury of your couch or bed or what have you, we'll share that with you in the communication that follows tonight's event. I'll also just mention, while we don't have any answers at the moment, some of you may be aware that the College Board has made some changes to the AP test schedule. What was once a 2-week testing window, all in paper and pencil, is now a 6-week testing window with a mixture of paper and pencil and virtual and in school and at home. Just today, the high school community, the faculty, Ann Meyer, myself, and the counselors got together to talk about these changes. I think it was announced last week. We're still in the process of deciding as a school what makes sense. It is a school-based option to choose which test administration and how to do it. And as that, I guess, as we have more clarity on that front, we will be communicating that to you. But there could be some, I guess, test changes on the horizon. I think I'm going to close there and stop sharing my screen and just like see what questions have come up for everybody out there and do our best to answer any of them. I'll also just make a little plug at 8 o'clock. We are having a high school council meeting. So if you're looking to do a little back-to-back, hopefully you have the link to that. And that's going to be at 8 o'clock. But I'm going to turn this sharing off and see what questions we can answer.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Did I understand correctly that the AP subject courses are not happening? So if my child is in AP World History, is there no test? I mean, an AP test, that is, that
Right.
she'll need to sit for?
Okay, so that's you're combining two different tests. There's the
Okay.
AP exam, which is in May, and that's the culminating exam that all AP students take that is, summative through the whole year on that specific topic. And so that exam, the AP exam, will still be happening. The College Board has changed the College Board has given schools a few different options as to when to administer it. So I don't have my calendar at my disposal, but the originally scheduled date could be changing. We are in discussions as a faculty as to when best to administer these exams. So your child and everybody else's children that are in AP World or AP Chemistry or Art History or any other AP that they're taking will still be taking that AP exam. The SAT subject test, which is a separate exam, so that was just one subject, 60 minutes out of 800. The score was out of 800. That colleges, very few colleges, which is why it doesn't exist anymore, very few colleges were requiring as part of an application for admissions. That specific test has been what's the right word I'm looking for? It's been canceled. They've canceled that. That no longer exists. You no longer are required to take it. It's no longer being offered. And so that's separate from the AP exam.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, this is Gary, Gary Berman. This may be a stupid question because I'm navigating the US educational system for the first time. So are there courses or subjects that kids have to take for junior and senior year? And then how many courses are these ones that are selective? Do they have the ability to add to the ones that are sort of mandatory?
I'm going to let one of the other counselors take that question. So whoever wants to dive in, go for it.
I can take it, sure. So a great question. So New York State, right, if your child goes to New York State High School, which he or she does, students have to take 22 credits in order to graduate. And that 22 credits is sort of made up of a formula of classes, right? So you have to take 4 English classes to graduate, 4 history classes to graduate, et cetera, and so forth. So your counselor, when each individual student meets with their counselor at the end of each year or middle of each year to plan for the next year, the counselor is asking probing questions like, have you taken health? Because that's a New York State requirement. Have you taken a 1 year of an art or a music class? Because that's a New York State requirement. So we sort of like the short answer is we are very much aware of graduation requirements, and we craft each student's schedule each year keeping those requirements in mind. Did that answer your question? And there in the course catalog, if you're really interested, there's a breakdown of exactly how many credits are sort of designated to each subject area.
No, that's great. If you guys are monitoring it, then that's one less thing for me to worry about. And then, so how many of these electives are they able to do or take in a quarter or a year?
I
don't mind. Yeah, I can hop in. Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on the student's schedule, like how it breaks down, whether it's a semester long class or a year long class. So that's something that right now we're taking the requests. So then when we build the schedule later on in the spring, we can kind of see how things are shaking out and if there's, a certain amount of free periods and things like that. So it really depends on the types of electives. There's no like set number or anything like that.
Great, thank you, thanks.
I'm just typing an answer in the chat box, which I'll now just vocalize. In regards to changes to the ACT, if I know some of you on the call actually were quite on top of this. The ACT did, the ACT is broken into 5 different subsections: the English section, the reading section, the math section, uh, writing, and science. 5 different sections. The the ACT hinted at allowing students to take just 1 or 2 subsections at a time and not have to take the entire exam. I think that information came out, I'm going to say like in January or February of last year, and then the world kind of got turned upside down, and no information about that has been shared since. I will also say, because I'm just now thinking of it, I'm going to speak to Isaac, who works for Bespoke. Last year, he did what I thought was a great job talking about the differences between the SAT and the ACT. I'm going to have a call with him soon, and I'm going to record that, and I'm going to share that with, I think it's most pertinent to the sophomore class, but I'll share it with, the high school at large, just so you can, spend some time better understanding the differences between the 2 tests. I mean, you can obviously go and take practice tests of the 2 exams, and I know the junior class is offering those again as a fundraiser, I believe in the month of March. But just as a parent, better understanding the nuances is something that I think will help you help your child. And then you could also just have like a more informed discussion with your student about which test might be most appropriate for your student.
I think also Mr. Keinel just mentioned this, just I had a parent ask me today about it. I think it's through the PTA, and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, Bespoke is offering a practice SAT and a practice ACT for students to register for and take. So if you're curious about differences in the tests, how you sort of innately feel taking each exam, the questions are obviously like structured a bit differently. That may be a nice opportunity for you to support the senior class or the junior class, wherever the money goes, and get a better sense of the difference of those exams.
I can share that. We've I think put that in our newsletter. If the parents out there are seeing that, we put that information in our newsletter. So if you could dig for Ms. Zelikoff's newsletter, or I can also put that in the email to follow this event as well.
Is that something that we should be doing now in the sophomore year, or?
The preparation you're referring to, I imagine?
Yeah, well, the tests that you taught, the practice.
Yeah, so the short answer to that is no. I don't think, I wouldn't advise sophomores to begin preparing. I guess, it's akin to, kind of training for a big race, if you will. Like, you don't necessarily need months and months and months of training as much as you need maybe like a short, dedicated, sort of rigorous training schedule leading up to the event. And so, I think even if Isaac was here from Bespoke, he would echo this. I think for different students, there might be maybe a little bit of a longer curve, if you will, for how long they need to get ready for an exam. But 3 months, maybe for some 4 or 5 months, but by no means do you need, 6 to 12 months of preparation for one of these tests. As we all are familiar with, the Zoom fatigue, there's most definitely like a test preparation fatigue that happens for students. And, nobody does well on anything if they're walking into it a little bit run down. So, you know, I think what makes sense for everybody out there is to start by figuring out which test is best for them. You know, again, there was basically every school was test optional this past application cycle. It's looking more and more like that for the next application cycle. So for the class of 2023, I think if I get my numbers right here, for the sophomores, for everybody out here on this call, I think it's a little bit too early to tell. I think if, you know, the elasticity in the world kind of comes back to normal and things, you know, schools resume full in-person instruction around the world, it's probably likely that colleges will go back to requiring the test, but it's a little bit too early to make that call. So I think, especially for the sophomores, if not physically preparing, mentally and maybe emotionally preparing to take that test is probably appropriate.
So I missed. So when do they take the?
They usually. So sorry. The short answer is usually junior year, and potentially senior year. And so I think depending upon the student and how ready they are, it could be in the fall of junior year or in the spring of junior year.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yes. All right. If there's nothing else on anybody's mind, we appreciate you coming out, logging on. I will send out, somebody asked in the chat, and I think Mrs. Hasajakai responded, we will send out a recording of this, including some of the documents I mentioned for the summer programs, some links to the college virtual fairs, and I feel like there's something else that I'm forgetting, but when I get to my desk in the morning, I will remember and send that out as well. You know, if you haven't already, please be on the lookout for some snail mail from the department, or maybe just an email from your child's counselor with a Zoom link for their course planning meeting. If your child has a CSE meeting, please make sure they're there, because we will be talking about classes at that meeting, but they should be there anyways. And I think with that, I'm going to call it a night. The planning meetings are scheduled by each counselor for each student. So they're starting to happen. It's most likely the majority of meetings will occur after February break. And so you should have, again, received something in the mail. And if you didn't, you might have gotten an email from your child's counselor. And if you feel like you missed that, please reach out to whomever your child's counselor is. Okay, good night, everybody. I hope to see you, some of you in 10 minutes at the high school council meeting. Thank you, counselors. Appreciate it. I'm just going to stop recording.